We hear a lot these days about misinformation and disinformation and their effects. Truth is, such efforts have been around for a very long time. In a new book just released today, Attack from Within, How Disinformation is Sabotaging America, author and University of Michigan professor and former U.S. Attorney Barbara McQuade walks through the history, the dangers, and possible fixes to this prevalent problem. She's also co-host of the popular podcast Sisters-in-Law. Barbara McQuade joins us now to explain why she thinks all of this works. Barbara, it's good to see you. The book itself addresses the difference between disinformation and misinformation. A lot of people just interchange those terms. Let's clear it up.
Yeah, well, as I define it, disinformation is the deliberate use of lies to deceive other people, whether that's for a political agenda, a profit agenda, or a personal agenda. Misinformation is someone who unwittingly passes along disinformation. So we may read something, think it to be true, and we share it with our friends. And so in that way, we exponentially expand and amplify those false messages.
You spell out in the book how disinformers gain power, specifically appealing to emotion over reason, stoking divisions. Talk about that, because it's a powerful tool when used intentionally.
Yes, so I talk about some of the tactics that we have seen people use throughout the course of history to gain power over people. And one of them is what debaters refer to as the either-or fallacy, to suggest to people that there are only two sides to any issue. There is my side and there is that other side, and then to demonize the other side and use them as scapegoats to make them such an untenable choice that the only choice that you can make is to choose the authoritarian. That's one of the tactics that people use. And then another is to suggest that everyone is corrupt and nothing is true. We see this in Putin's Russia, where people call it the fog of unknowability. People are inconsistent with their own statements, and so average citizens get angry and then cynical and finally numb and then disengage from politics altogether. And so when nobody is closely paying attention, that's just where the authoritarian wants them.
You know, it's really been interesting to see a lot of members of the Republican Party do literal 180 back from around January 6th when they denounced the former president and what happened. And now, of course, everybody is in his corner. I'm curious, from your study, is this because they have bought into the disinformation, or do they know better, but they're worried about their own maybe primary elections?
Yeah, so, I can't tell you what's in the head of anybody in particular, but I have to believe at least many of these politicians absolutely know better. On January 7th of 2021, they were talking about this incredibly serious attack at the Capitol. And then many months later, they're agreeing that it was normal tourist activity and even referring to some of the January 6th defendants as hostages. I think that they are part of this problem where people have chosen tribe over truth. What matters more is about winning and being on the winning team. And when I say all of these things, nobody takes it literally. It is all about being on my team and then casting aspersions on the other team as whatever you want to call them, the liberal, radical, left, woke side, and trying to suggest to people that that is a bad course for America and the only course is my side. But it's really troubling because when you look at people like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, Republicans who tried to stick to facts and tried to stick to truth, and they've been purged from their party leadership. And so I think that the only way we can govern ourselves is through a devotion to facts and truth. And so I hope that this book will expose the problem of going along and just trying to win at the expense of truth.
By the way, it is worth noting, people think this is sort of all new since maybe Donald Trump became president or something. You in the book give us the history of this. You can take it back to James Madison and Federalist 63. The techniques have been around for centuries.
Yes, so we see this throughout American history, throughout world history. Hitler and Mussolini and Putin have used some of these techniques. So in Mein Kampf, for example, Hitler talked about the need to have simple lies that are repeatable and to repeat them over and over and over again. So the idea of a stolen election, you will hear Donald Trump never relent, constantly repeating that refrain, even in the face of evidence to the contrary. And the idea is that the more people hear a message, especially when they start hearing it from other sources, the more likely it is to be believed. Another is that if you're going to lie, you should lie big. Because all of us lie about little things. My husband might tell me that that dress does not make me look fat, dear. But most of us don't lie about big things. And what Hitler said is, Few people could imagine that anyone would have the audacity to lie about something of such significance. And so that's why the bigger the lie, the more believable it becomes. So a stolen election, what lie could be bigger than that in a democracy?
And by the way, your husband's a smart guy. You also in the book talk about the fixes that come up from the supply side. The people are doing it, but I want you to spend just a moment talking about the demand side. That's us and what we can do to combat disinformation.
Yeah, so I don't want to put all the burden on us because I do think there are things we can do in our government and with big tech companies. But in terms of all of us, I think there are a couple of things we can do. One is we can be more critical consumers of media. Before we pass along some sort of message, we should verify it. Look for a second source. Don't just read the headline, read the whole story and look at the evidence that is demonstrated in that article. Is it a credible source? Is there data? What is the study that it is based on? So that's important. Engaging in critical media studies for students and civics education for students. It's much more difficult for people to trick us and fool us into believing false things when we have a deep understanding of those things. And then finally, Paul, I think it's really important that we engage in responsible speech, that we don't just pile on and talk about the January 6th defendants as hostages, for example, just because we believe it makes our side win. We have to have a commitment to truth ourselves.
Professor Barbara McQuade, thank you. The book is called Attack from Within. There is a launch event in Chicago, March 1st at Regenstein Library. For more information, go to barbaramcquade.com. Thank you, Barb. Congratulations. Book's out today.
Thank you, Paul.